Other benefits, right? Just-in-time expansion, scaling and shrinking. I'm gonna turn it over to Mr. Krill to talk a little bit more about this, but this is that second use case that we brought up on the previous slide.
Yes, I mean, a lot of organizations have seasonality to them where I need to add a little bit of a burst capacity or something came up and I didn't expect it. I'm going to have, an increase in workload for a couple weeks, maybe a couple months. But you can then take advantage of the ability to scale that within the public cloud without having to deploy new hardware and shift some of those resources over there. And we can take cues from that capacity forecasting and the performance data that Nutanix has. And once we hit certain thresholds, then we can start spinning up that additional infrastructure in public cloud to help us shift some of those resources from one side to the other.
Yeah, and all these things can be identified as triggers that um, activate a run book, an automation playbook, right? And again, that functionality is built into the platform. Okay. Another thing that we do is the last use case was this idea behind lifting and shifting applications. And so some organizations feel like they want to try to refactor an application in cloud while it's running on-prem. But we believe that another use case here is to actually move the application to the public cloud and then refactor it while it's in the public cloud, right? So NC2 as an on-ramp to cloud native and leveraging those services available in cloud native while your app is still up and running. Because that refactoring process, like that can be very, very time consuming as we've discovered. Okay. So how do you do all this, right? I've sold you on the idea, and I just mapped it all out for you. Here you go. Very simple, right? There's your migration plan. No, I'm just kidding. That's just some silliness that I made up. Most of you are over there in the drift of uncertainty. But no, what once you have uh, um, an idea for what you need in public cloud. You're going to you're going to leverage your public cloud provider to provide you with pricing levels. I'm not going to go through all of this, but just know that a 1 year reserved instance and 3 years reserved instance is a 2x difference. So it's like buying 2 years and getting the third year free. So buy two, get one free. Why is that? Because they want you to buy more and commit more in order to get a good deal. But in case you're wondering how you decide which of those instance types you use, right? You do a workload analysis, but really you let choice do the workload analysis for you because we provide our partners with a tool that allows them to figure out based on your workloads or which workloads you want to move to public cloud, how to size for those workloads. Okay. For this tool, simple. It's called Cyser. It's been around for a long time, but all those instance types are built into Cyser. You pick the cloud, we tell you how much you need in public cloud. Okay. So how does it work? You've made the decision. You've picked the instance type. Now you need some Nutanix software. I know we're running out of time. That's why I'm kind of speeding up a little bit. Um, you make use of us or Azure Marketplace. So Ben, how does that work?
Yeah, so we can work with you. We work with a number of our customers to help leverage potentially some of that, already budgeted for dollars that you have for Azure and AWS. And maybe you haven't leveraged it as quickly as you had anticipated. And you're like, hey, I need to figure out a way to use this. Well, that could be a great way to get started. Get that pilot light cluster up and going for DR, leverage that. And then as you look to renegotiate some of those commits in the future, you can add that on. So definitely a lot of different options as far as how do we, get past the budgetary concerns. But that's where, our team, Brian's team can help you out, figure out what's the best way that we can leverage what you have now and get you on the road.
So you've chosen a hardware platform. You've acquired Nutanix software through the marketplace via a private offer. from choice. Now, what do? As a customer, now that you own it, you simply go to my.nutanix.com, you log in as a customer, and you leverage the NC2 portal. Now, I will freely admit that that in and of itself is a gross oversimplification of of that process because the way you do things on-prem is vastly different than the way you do things in public cloud. So I'm not oversimplifying the actual process of deploying Nutanix in public cloud, but I'm going to highly, highly suggest that you work with a capable partner like Choice to kind of map this process out, right? You don't want to just jump in with both feet because you might jump into a hole full of stakes at the bottom or a rocky decline, whatever the case might be, whatever anecdote you want to use. Just work with a capable partner. Once you've decided how you want to go through this process, then really it is just a matter of going to your portal, going through the wizard, and deploying the cluster. And I like to talk about time to value here because it's very important to me. It takes about 3 hours to spin up a cluster in a Nutanix cluster in public cloud, right? So think about that for a second. 3 hours. So from the time you say go to the time you're able to start using it, creating VMs, that time is very low, measured in hours, not weeks, not months, not years, measured in hours. You are taking advantage of the spend that you've made in a very short time. So what do? Once you have this all spun up, you've got a cluster uh, on-prem or because you do not have to have a cluster on-prem to leverage a cluster, a Nutanix cluster in public cloud. What do? You start moving stuff, right? It's simple. Move. It's way simpler than actually moving from, a house to another house or across town. And Krill's going to talk about that for a second.
Yes, I mean, this is included, and this is something I mentioned to any customer I talk with. This is included, and it's not just hey, you get to use this at the beginning. This is something that you can continue to use as long as you're a Nutanix customer to move those workloads, whether it be into or out of and working with the Nutanix platform. So you might have a workload that you moved to Azure Native, and you may need to bring it back, or in a different one that is now on Nutanix that makes more sense as an Azure native. So this can be something that is an ongoing tool in your tool belt and additional value that Nutanix is providing to help you. Again, those workloads, we don't care where they work, where they're actually hosted. Let's make sure that they're hosted the most appropriately, most cost effectively, and we'll figure out how to help you get there.
And like everything Nutanix related, it's easy, right? What do? How do you do it? You identify a source, you identify a target, that automatically creates a migration plan. And when you're ready to execute the migration plan, you click this button right here called cutover, right? Super easy, reusable, right? So what do you get? You get a hybrid cloud built in hours. You get to be able to manage data centers, cloud, and edge as one entity. You get a great deal of efficiency. You get less expense. Remember, micro waste is real. You have to pay for micro waste. You have to pay for what you don't use in public cloud, right? And that's something that people don't consider, right? You turn on a virtual machine and you don't use it. Guess what? You're paying for the virtual machine. 60% faster workload migration to cloud over refactoring, lift, shift, then refactor, and then fully portable workloads and licensing. So you get all of that with Nutanix.